If I don't say this story to you, you're just missing a big chunk. So he said, he ended up, Rabbi Lazer Brody, he said this story, I was on the floor. He said that, I said the whole Dvar Torah had to show you how Hashem works with tikkunim, gilgulim, ayil, this whole thing, how to make someone come back. He said the following story. He said, there's a Rabbi Feldman, I think, in Cleveland, whatever, and he teaches in a college, not a religious, a Goyish college. And he decided to give a class on Emunah. 25, half Jews, half not Jews. I don't even know who was in the class. So this rabbi gets up in this college out in I don't know where, and he says, who in my class ever heard of the word Emunah? These kids never even heard of Hashem. They never heard of anything. One kid raises his hand, and he says, Emunah, total belief in God. The rabbi standing there is like, oh my goodness, we have a religious kid in the class, but he's not. He says, did you go to yeshiva? He goes, no. Are your parents religious? He goes, no. He says, how did you ever hear the word Emunah? He says, Rabbi, you're not going to believe what I'm going to tell you. The rabbi says, get up in front of the class and tell us how you ever heard of the word of Emunah. He says, I'm a Jew, and 2 of my friends in this class are Jews. We don't know nothing about nothing. My grandmother bought me a little charm, a Magen David. That's all I know about Judaism, is I wear a Magen David. He says, one night, me and my 2 Jewish friends went to Alabama, to a bar. We're going to go get ourselves a bunch of beers. He says, we sit down in Alabama, in this bar. I'm wearing my Magen David, and this girl waiter, right, barmaid, comes over and says, yo, can I get you boys a drink? I say, yeah, get us 3 beers. She goes, hey, man, you're wearing a Magen David. You must be Jewish. He goes, yup. She goes, well, check this out, man. She puts out her hand, and there's a tattoo on her hand, E-M-U-N-A. The guy goes, what's that? She goes, that's Emunah. She goes, you're not going to believe how I got this tattoo. He says, tell me, how'd you get this tattoo? She says, well, she says, I was going out with this boy, and he was a big lawyer from a big law firm. Man, that boy was rich. He drove himself a big car. He was rich, and we was in love. We was going to get married. I was going to have a big house on the top of a hill with a big fat car. I was going to have a Mercedes. I was going to have a mink. I was going to have diamonds all over. That boy was my man. He just upped himself and walked out of my life. She said, I was broken. My heart was broken. I was depressed. Life was over for me. She goes, the owner of this bar, he's a Jewish man. He said, whatever her name was, Colette, I don't know what her name was, Eileen. He said, Eileen, you look depressed. She goes, yeah, my man, you just upped and left me, man. He said, you look very depressed, Eileen. I just read a book. I just got a book from one of my friends. It's called The Garden of Emunah, from some rabbi. It's a true story. It's a true story. Said, Eileen, you read this book, you're never going to be depressed ever. She said, boys, I took that book. I read it from one end to the other. Good book. I didn't believe one word that rabbi said. She said, 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from my girlfriend. She says, Eileen. She goes, what? She goes, you read about your boyfriend in the newspaper? She goes, my boyfriend was in the newspaper? She says, yeah. They just caught him 12 kilos of cocaine. That boy was no lawyer. That boy was a drug dealer, man. He was just doing drugs. He ain't no lawyer. He needs a lawyer. She turned around. She said, I looked up at heaven. I said, God, that book that man wrote, that's right. You always watching us all the time. I thought that was a lawyer. That was a drug dealer. I would have been dead. The rest of my life, I would have been in jail. God, whatever that rabbi wrote is true. I have Emunah. She said, I upped myself. I went to the tattoo king down here. I said, you put a tattoo on my arm, you write E-M-U-N-A, Emunah. You see how far HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to go to get 3 Jewish boys who are going to get a beer in Alabama to get connected to this book. Of course, when he heard about the book, he got the book, and that changed his whole life. Hashem never gives up on his children, ever, ever, ever.